I have not spoken in front of an audience of real people in 4 years. It's been a long time since I've done this. But yeah, thank you all so much for having me here. So talk is called DuckDBT, not a database or a DBT adapter, but a secret third thing. After a fairly long preamble, I will tell you what the secret third thing is. Ideally, I will time this talk so that there's no time for questions whatsoever. First, who exactly am I? This is me. I'm Josh Wills. I've worked at a bunch of different places. Right now, I am unemployed. Usually in San Francisco, you get an applause when you say that. Can I have an applause, please? Thank you. I'm unemployed. I have no job whatsoever, and it's fantastic. It's everything you dreamed it could be. No, it's great. I just like to spend a lot of time with my favorite embedded, analytically oriented relational database, which is DuckDB. I'm going to start just to sort of level set things. I want to explain what exactly DBT is, at least as I see it. Is anyone here not familiar with DBT? It's got to be at least some people, right? There's a couple of people. Like DBT, like what is this thing, right? Because if you go to Google and you type in what exactly is DBT, then like unfortunately this picture is what comes back, which is like, it's this thing. And it's like there's some raw data over here, and then you DBT it, and then you DBT on top of all those little cloud data warehouses down there. And then on the outside, you get some data sets, and then you can feed those into BI tools and ML models and operational analytics. And that's fine. That's not a terrible description, but it doesn't really explain to you what DBT is. And so to do that, I have to kind of go back in time. And I'm sort of bummed because Lloyd has been doing this like a lot longer than I have. So I thought I was going to be the old guy on the stage saying, hey, remember back in the day? So my back in the day is Apache Maven, because I was writing Java for a living before Maven existed. That's how long I've been doing it. I used like Ant build scripts and stuff like that, right? Like a long time ago. Everyone's kind of like horrified. No. What Maven did for Java developers was it came along and said, if you do everything my way, exactly as I tell you to, with no exceptions whatsoever, I will give you a bunch of nice free stuff. And I will make it very easy for you to build your Java packages and web binaries and all that kind of stuff. That's what Maven did. There was nothing like that before. Maven came along, said, do it my way, and then you get all this great free stuff. And that's basically what DBT did for people whose primary development language is SQL. It was the same kind of idea. It's a build tool. DBT says, do everything my way, exactly as I tell you to, and then I will give you all of this great free stuff. I will give you all these nice documentation. I'll give you this awesome sort of testing framework. And crucially, and most crucially, especially if you're a hiring manager for like a data team, anyone you hire who knows DBT is like instantly productive in your code base. You don't have to train them. All the documentation, all that kind of stuff is there. It used to be back in the day when you go work at a new job, you had to learn like their build environment and all this kind of stuff. It was like a huge, huge pain in the ass, absolute waste of time. And we just don't do this anymore because it's nonsense. In fact, any modern, really good systems programming language like Rust or Go, they ship with this stuff included. It's like batteries included. It's not even a question. It's like, obviously you use Cargo, right? Obviously you use Go build. Like you don't even think about it. It's not even a question. So DBT did that same thing for people whose primary development language was SQL. Now that said, obviously building, relational data models is not exactly like building, binaries and packages and stuff like that. It's a little bit different. And so the other analogy people often use is the DBT is a lot like Terraform. It's like terraforming your data warehouse. Okay, so it's like the data warehouse is out there. You write a bunch of code that sort of expresses dependencies between different per Lloyd horrible rectangles that you construct in your cloud data warehouse, and DBT will go and construct them for you. So that's sort of the other analogy that is commonly used for it. And it's not a bad analogy, but it's not one that I like. And I want to talk about why. DBT and the way people think about it and the way people talk about it, like based on that sort of first, like this thing, like this slide I showed you, right? People sort of over-index on thinking of DBT as being tied very tightly to a cloud data warehouse or a database server of some sense. And that is like deeply, deeply not true. There are lots and lots and lots of data modeling problems that have nothing at all to do with the data warehouse, like not even close, or even any database server of any kind. There's lots and lots of problems people encounter where like database doesn't even show up. And as a result, we don't really teach people all of this stuff. We don't really teach people the data modeling stuff until they show up at a job somewhere and they have to like start using like the big Snowflake or the big Databricks cluster without really any concept of how to model data for analytical usage. All they've ever used in their lives is like pandas or R data frames or whatever. So like, is it really any shock to us that they go and reconstruct pandas data frames inside of Snowflake? Should we be surprised about this at all? No, absolutely not, right? There's lots and lots of learning the skills of data modeling, just like any other sort of software development skill, is something we should teach everywhere and we should make very, very easy to do. And that really is what DBT DuckDB is about. So DBT DuckDB is the DuckDB adapter for DBT. It is a way to use DBT and DuckDB together. And a little while ago, I wrote this vision statement. This is in the DBT Slack in our DuckDB channel. First and foremost, we want to be the absolute easiest and fastest way for anyone to get up and running as an analytics engineer, start learning how to build analytical data models. And we want to be a good citizen. We want to support the ecosystem. We want to make it really easy to like create packages, create tools, create demos, create anything you need without actually having to run a database server. So that's our good, angelic, positive side. Simultaneously, we want to push the limits of DBT as a tool and make it do all of the things that DBT Labs does not want you to be able to do with it. And that is our sort of pirate hackers kind of side of things. And so I had a little too much fun with Midjourney putting this talk together, I'm not going to lie. It's a really great way to procrastinate if you're working on a talk, do some Midjourney stuff. So I want to tell my supervillain origin story. How exactly did I find myself in this position, working on this project, doing this kind of stuff? Let's talk about it. So, like most villains, my origin story starts in March of 2020. Everyone remember, no one really wants to think about March of 2020, right? That's not a fun time. No, I did two kind of fairly important things in my life in March of 2020. One, I wrote my first DBT adapter. I wrote DBT Materialize, which did anyone know Materialize? It's like a streaming SQL database. It's very, very cool. I wrote the original DBT Materialize adapter. I've since given it to the folks at Materialize, and they've done a much better job with it. But that was when I first got into this sort of mode of building DBT adapters for fun. It's not really profitable, but it's quite fun. That was the first half of the month. Then, everything happened. And the latter half of the month, I found myself working with a team of epidemiologists from Johns Hopkins, a bunch of folks from AWS, a bunch of folks from the California State Department of Public Health, running and scaling gigantic epidemiological simulations to try to predict the course of the pandemic very, very early on as we were like locking stuff down and all that kind of craziness was going on. And the net of this work was we were running gigantic AWS batch jobs that were spitting out like fairly sizable Parquet files that would describe kind of at a county level in California and Utah and a bunch of other states, and eventually like the whole United States. Various sort of possible predictions for how many people would be in the hospital, how many people would be sick, how many people would die, all that kind of stuff. We're generating these giant Parquet files, we're storing them in S3, and then we're running a bunch of R code that's going to suck those Parquet files in and then generate some reports that we were showing to policymakers and decision makers and stuff like that. And so it was one of those things where like, it was a bunch of Parquet files in S3 because that was what was best for our simulation, And it was like, well, I guess we could put this in a database, but like who really wants to put it in a database, right? That's like work. We got to stand up a database. We got to load data into it, like that's, I don't want to do that. Do you want to do that? No, I don't want to do that. No one wants to do that. That's not fun. What I really, really wanted was just a database that I could just start and point at my Parquet files in S3 and say, hey, go query these for me. And that's it. That was all I wanted. And so that was what kind of led me to go looking for what eventually turned out to be what I found was DuckDB. And so I was sort of like what got me initially curious about the project. So time goes forward, as it always does. And so September rolls around, and I'm done working with the epidemiologists, and I've been doing some consulting and stuff like that, but it's not really like doing it for me. I want to build something again. So I decide to start building DBT DuckDB. So this is September 9th, 2020. This is the initial commit to DBT DuckDB. It's up there on the web. You can go see it and all that kind of good stuff. It's nice to see the history of things. And the fun part about it for me was that in the process of building the adapter, I discovered stuff I needed in DuckDB. I discovered features that were not yet there. And so I went and I had not written C++ code in anger in like 10 years at that point, right? So it was like very intimidating to get back into C++ after a long time, but I did it. And I started sending pull requests to DuckDB. And so a bunch of features in there, like the original information schema, update from logic, all that kind of stuff was all things I wrote once upon a time in order to make DBT DuckDB work well with DuckDB. Now, please rest assured, all of the code I've written in DuckDB has since been deleted. Real engineers have replaced it. It's fine now. It's nothing to worry about. It's fine. Speaking of which, while I have you two guys, I actually have a pull request open for you. There's a bug. So yeah, but I think you I can actually just merge it right here. Is basically what you're saying. So it's fantastic. So this is not well. Doesn't ever hurt to try. Let's see how that goes. It'll be fine. Anyway, so I started working. It was like super cool for me to sort of co-develop the database along with the DBT adapter. And so I did that for a while, and time went on, and I released it. And like, yeah, no one cared whatsoever. I was very excited about this. I was like, hey, everybody, I've built this thing called DBT DuckDB. It would be a great way to teach, analytical data models to your students. They don't have to run a database. Look how great this would be to use. And everyone's kind of like, yeah, it's not really, didn't really get anyone excited about it. So I was like, oh, that's too bad. That's okay. I got to go get a job. So I went to work at WeaveGrid. And so I sort of shelved the project for a bit, set it aside. And then, kind of a funny thing happened. And what I want to talk about next is sort of 3 vignettes, 3 little stories from people finding DBT DuckDB and coming up with a cool way to use it. And then that kind of turning into like a thing, like capital A, capital T, like a thing. The first one, this is the first reference to DBT DuckDB on Twitter. Real surprised to see who it came from, right? Everyone's shocked. Alex Monahan. Everyone knows Alex. Alex, fantastic, right? So Alex came across DBT DuckDB, and he said, hey, do you think that like you could use this for managing a bunch of Parquet data in S3? Like you could kind of have like a little data lake orchestrator, but you wouldn't need Spark or anything else like that. And I was kind of like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't really like how I was thinking about it. But Alex was right. And over like the past couple of years, like this is like 4 months from when I launched the project to when Alex comes up with this. A bunch of people, like this guy Roddick, this guy Alex, this guy Niels Clay, a whole bunch of people have actually done the work to make it really, really easy and really seamless to manage large collections of Parquet files in S3 and other sort of object stores using DBT DuckDB. And so much so that like now, like Niels, who's one of the developers on the project, published this really great, fantastic Medium post a couple months ago about why you should use DBT DuckDB instead of Spark in your data pipelines. And it makes like a fantastic argument that is only getting stronger with out-of-core hash aggregates and Iceberg support, right? So if you find yourself running Spark on data sets in S3 that are not larger than memory, and you would like your system to be faster, cheaper, and simpler, have I got the project for you? Check it out, okay? That's thing 1. All right, thing 2, DBT Excel. That's obviously, right? This was an April Fool's Day joke. It's an April Fool's Day joke. So DBT Excel. So again, Niels and his friends at Be Data Minded, or Data Minded, which is a data consultancy in Belgium, created this whole fairly elaborate joke. There's a DBT Excel website. They created a YouTube video talking about how awesome it is to do, like, use your data warehouse in Excel. You want to, just go ahead and do it, that kind of thing. And most fun, they actually wrote the DBT Excel adapter for real. They took DBT DuckDB, forked it, and made it support Excel instead. And I love the idea. I love the joke. Like, we're not DataB, we're not like super funny, obviously. Like, so this was kind of fantastic. So much so that we opened a feature and took their code and basically created kind of a new custom plugin system for DBT DuckDB. DBT DuckDB is itself a plugin for DBT. So it's one of those like, yo dog, I heard you like plugins. So now you can plug in while you plug in. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Anyway. But this is now like a top level feature. We just released this. I was really happy with it. All of our sort of DBT DuckDB's Iceberg support, the ability to talk to any SQL Alchemy database, and yes, the ability to talk to Excel files, because I didn't know about the spatial thing. It was too early for that. Is all supported via our own little plugin infrastructure. All right. And last but not least, my favorite by far, the modern data stack in a box. Modern data stack in a box. So this is a project that Jacob Matson did. Is Jacob here? I don't think Jacob made it. That's too bad, right? Everyone's like, oh, boo, Jacob. Boo, should have came. We're recording this, right? We can make fun of him on YouTube later. Okay, awesome. That's awesome. That'd be great. All right, yeah. Jacob should have come. Jacob decided one day that he wanted to construct a sort of modern data stack with ingestion and data warehousing, DBT and BI, all that kind of stuff for his NBA playoff forecasting tool that he built, right? So it's kind of like I'm a baseball person myself, so I love Baseball Prospectus has a system called Pacoda for predicting baseball players and baseball teams and stuff like that. So this is Jacob's thing doing the same thing for NBA teams. And so he built this entire thing, and I helped him out as best I could, kind of as we went along. And he created, a complete system that can run like in a single container and teach you all the things you need to know to build your own modern data stack in a box without requiring cloud data warehouse or anything else at all. And happily for me, that if you go to DBT's website now and you say, hey, I don't know anything about DBT and I want to learn how to use it, the quick start for DBT Core uses DBT DuckDB. And in fact, the project is called Jaffle Shop Template. It's up on GitHub. And it is basically a riff on the modern data stack in a box. And it's how DBT recommends that you get started using DBT, which again, like be still my heart, like back on November 5th, 2020, like literally nothing would make me happier than this. So I'm thrilled and I'm like super, super happy. I'm very pleased. Okay. All right. So that's where we are. Where are we going? We got some cool, so what keeps me busy? A lot of things keep me busy. My 7-year-old keeps me busy. The DuckDB folks keep me busy because they keep releasing new awesome stuff that I need to go support. I did not actually fully appreciate that insert or replace table thing. I actually need to go do that. That'll be really useful. So that's fantastic. The DBT folks keep me very busy releasing cool stuff that I need to add into DBT DuckDB. One thing I'm very excited about is column level lineage. So I always know what's going to happen to the Snowflake Summit a year ahead of time because I've been using DuckDB for a year already. So they were really proud of themselves today. They announced group by all. Yeah, good job, Snowflake. Wonder where they got that idea. Anyway, DuckDB, alone among cloud databases, or databases as far as I can tell of any kind, has a function that will return to you the abstract syntax tree they use to parse the query, like to you as the client. You can get the AST right back as a query. This is amazing. Why does not everyone do this, right? There's all these column level lineage tools out there, right? But the authoritative source for what a query is doing is the database. And it is insane, the database, that every database in the world can't just tell me what is the abstract syntax tree that you are using to parse this query. But of course, DuckDB can. And so I'm going to build the world's greatest 100% free column level lineage tool for DBT DuckDB because I have that right there. And I'm very excited for it. And last but not least, the last fun thing I'm doing is working on simplifying the MDS in a box. So the MDS in a box is great, but you can always make great things better by making them simpler. And so that's kind of what I'm up to right now. The project I'm using to do that is called Buena Vista. Buena Vista. These are all pictures of Buena Vista Park in San Francisco. If you're visiting from out of town, it's a lovely park. I highly recommend visiting. It's beautiful there. Buena Vista is Spanish for good view. I used to live right next to it. Buena Vista is a Python library I wrote that basically lets you create a server that pretends to be a Postgres database. It can also pretend in certain circumstances to be a Presto or Trino database. It is a Python server you can launch and it can pretend to act like a database. And if you stick DuckDB inside of it, you can treat a DuckDB database as if it was like a little Postgres database. You can trick Postgres clients into talking to it, all kinds of neat stuff like that. So again, what I'm asking with y'all is to bear with me here. I only started working on this about 6 months ago. Project yourselves back to November 5th, 2020, and just hang out with me a second, because I understand the impulse here is to say, why would anyone do that? That seems like a weird, crazy thing to do. You're right, but let's just go with it, okay? Along with Buena Vista, I have created a new repo called DuckDBT. I am really bad at naming stuff, not gonna lie. I make up for it by being extremely good at cache invalidation. I felt like that should have gotten more laughs, right? Was that not? I don't know. It was a good joke, right? I just didn't work on the delivery or something. I'm out of practice. I haven't done this in 4 years. Anyway, it's fine. The point of DuckDBT is to say, if you're running a DuckDB database inside of, say, a Jupyter notebook, you can load up the DuckDBT library into it as an IPython extension, and it will launch a thread that's listening on a port that's running in that Jupyter notebook process that speaks Postgres. So then you can point DBT at that process, and so you can basically sort of create a Postgres server out of a Jupyter notebook kernel. With Apache Superset, I have hacked Apache Superset so that you can load a DuckDBT driver. So I took Eliana's driver and I hacked it to load Buena Vista, sort of like a Postgres server alongside of it. So you can have a Superset instance. This is Apache Superset. Folks know Superset, right? It's like an open source BI tool library thing, okay? And it can be running and exposing a Postgres port so you can like have DBT talk to it. The main problem that we have is like people hacking on stuff in the modern data stack, or modern data stack in a box, is the kind of the context switching, the handoff, right? I do a DBT thing, then I gotta go to my BI tool and see if it works. And then I gotta go back and do some more DBT stuff, and then back to the BI tool. And everybody has this problem. Everybody has this problem. And so what I wanna do ultimately is build a tool that combines these two things together, where I can run DBT in Python, DuckDB in Python, and some visualization tools in Python all together in a single binary that's optimized. It's kind of designed to maximize my flow state as a developer. Just have everything I need right there with me, there to assist me. That's what I'm working on these days. I also think in general, it will be useful to make a DBT DuckDB that doesn't just know how to own and run a local DuckDB instance, but it's capable of configuring any DuckDB instance you have anywhere in the world. Because when you look at like all of the modern BI tools that are being developed right now, every single one of them has DuckDB at its core. Like this is the future. We're gonna have DuckDB cloud data warehouses, DuckDB in the BI tools, DuckDB on the ingest side of things. Like this is just the way this is gonna go, and I am so here for it. Like I'm totally excited. And as a result of all this kind of stuff, one last one. DBT DuckDB, I am so proud and it's such an honor to have worked on it. It's become far too important to be controlled just by me in my GitHub repository. So I'm donating it to the DuckDB Foundation. And so kind of starting probably around 1.6 or so, the DuckDB Foundation will be under the DuckDB organization. And then the DuckDB folks will be in charge of ensuring that it works and making sure that it keeps going and stuff. It is a little bit like sending a kid off to college. I'm not going to lie. Like it's a hard thing to do. But I cannot think of a better home for it. So thank you so much, Mark and Hannes, for taking it and taking good care of my baby for me. All right. Thank you. All right. And that's it. And I think inadvertently I finished too early, so there might be time for questions. No, but no one has any questions for me, right? I can just slide off the stage and tell people I'll see them at the party and then duck out early, right? That's fine. Anyway, yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Amazing. I know, then it worked. Yes. Thank you all so much. Yeah.